Well, I'm glad to see that even software writers do have their problems, though I notice they can sort their own out. I have had a few problems of my own this week with baud rates, stop and start bits, parity settings. I've been trying to communicate with my home micro. I did have a margin of success. I managed to send and receive messages in a mailbox on Telecom Gold. That was actually thanks to a simple piece of software written by John Coll. Oh. But I still haven't managed to get into our own bulletin board, John. More of that later.
Yes.
You seem to be having a simple time of it with this setup.
Right,
what is
this
it?
is a nice piece of software. It's really great. The great advantage is that when you buy the software, it comes with all the information in that you need. For example, you can select the service you want, EasyLink, One-to-One, Prestel, Telecom Gold, whatever, and all you do is select that and then dial. And the system knows automatically, well, it would do if it was working properly, the system knows automatically that, we'll go over to the other port, come on machine, that way, and
try and tell me what it should be doing anyway.
Right.
Oh, it's done it.
It's going to dial, I hope.
So you don't have to pick up the phone and actually dial for yourself?
That's right. It's got the numbers in it, it's also got the baud rates, the start and stop bits and everything else. So it's just ready to go, theoretically.
No setting up at all?
That's the idea.
Theoretically, as you say.
Yes,
and the services, all the commercial services and bulletin boards and everything as well?
That's right. You can do all those different things. Bulletin boards, electronic mail, Prestel, conferencing systems.
Yeah. What's conferencing, by the way?
Oh, that's something quite exciting. It's a way of bringing together a whole group of people who've got a common interest and sharing messages between them.
Via a computer?
Via a computer. But what's so interesting is that the people who are using it have ceased to be dominated by the technicalities of the computer, and they're starting to use the system for real as a communications medium. In fact, I know one very large company who are finding it so effective and such a commercial advantage that they actually want to keep it a secret that they're using conferencing systems so the competition don't find out. I mean, that's quite an indicator that it's powerful.
Yeah, it's refreshing to hear people praising what the system does rather than how it does it. I must admit, I want one.
Yes.
What is it, by the way?
So do I.
Vicom.
It's called Vicom.
Yeah.
First-rate software. £172 for the software, £300 for the modem. So the whole setup at the moment is quite expensive.
Yeah.
And in fact, you're far more likely to have something like this at home at the moment.
Now that modem, let me have a look.
Do you recognise that? Is that like the one at
vaguely.
home?
No, mine was a single rate, 1275 baud rate. Smaller than that.
Close. This is a more flexible thing.
Right.
The purpose of the modem is to take the signals from the computer and convert them in a form that can travel down the phone lines. For example, if you want to get anything down the phone line, you have to convert it to an audio tone like
something you can hear.
Those two tones for 0 and 1. We've got a graphic. If we show you that, you'll see what I mean. Every character is built up of a set of tones in a certain order. And a different character, if we put B up next, we see a different set of orders for the two tones going down the line. So the modem just takes the computer signals, push them down the line's audio tones.
So it just translates?
That's right.
One form of signal into another?
One of the interesting things is that you may have noticed that when data goes down, it takes a little while to come back up on the screen. And that's because, if we look at the next graphic, you'll see the computer, when you push a key, the data goes all the way down to the distant computer and then comes back and appears on the screen. So it's actually got to traverse quite a long route before it makes it to the screen.
But when it does appear on the screen, that verifies that it's got all the way to its destination and come back again.
Right.
That explains that. In fact, that explains the basics of a modem, I suppose.
Yes, the modem's quite straightforward in a way.
Reasonably simple. But when it comes to the software, communication software can be very tricky indeed.
Yes.
What have we got up here? Communicator. Now, this is fine if you want to communicate to through Telecom Gold, because that's what it's set up for. Right, it's set up for that. But if you want to change the parameters, I think you call it, look what you're faced with. I mean, a checklist as long as 3 arms.
It really is a bit intimidating, isn't it?
And is all that necessary?
No, it isn't.
I mean, what do you need to know after that?
Okay, well, one of the most important things you need to change is the baud rate, if you're going to talk to another system.
What is the baud rate, exactly?
Ah, right. You ask the awkward questions. Right, that's set for 1200 baud. That means 1200 bits per second that's going down the line. Each character requires 10 bits. So you can send 120 characters per second down the line.
Yeah.
Now, the computer at the other end has to be set up at the same baud rate so that it can receive 120 characters per second.
So you mean you have to set your computer up to match the computer at the other end?
Exactly so.
Right.
Now, if, for example, you want to talk to a bulletin board, it's pretty likely that the bulletin board is going to be working on 300 baud. So we can just change that down to 300, go down to the transmit baud rate and change that up to 300.
That now explains why I couldn't get through to the bulletin board last night with my single rate modem.
Oh, I see.
1275.
Right, yes.
Thank you very much for explaining that to me.
Okay.
Right. How many baud rates are there?
Oh, there are lots and lots, but there are two main ones. 300 baud for the bulletin boards, and as far as commercial service is concerned, there's a whole range, but pretty common is 1200 baud receive and 75 baud transmit. You can get into most systems with that. So those are the two that it would be sensible to go for. You'll cover yourself both ways.
And in fact, that's what you should go for if you haven't bought any equipment and you want to communicate.
Yes.
If you think there's any likelihood of going for a bulletin board, make sure you've got a dual...
Buy a dual standard modem, so you can cope with both. The software will always cope with both anyway.
What else have we got on this list?
Well,
what's parity and parity checking and all that?
We could pick almost any of these parameters and talk about them, but let me just talk about parity. This is a beautiful hangover from the days of paper tape, punch paper tape. 7 bits are needed for the character, and if the paper tape got a tear in it, you might get an extra hole. So they added an extra row of holes called parity. Let's have a look at another graphic and I can explain that better with that. Right, there are 7 bits marked under the character and the parity bit. At the moment, for the character A, they're just 2 bits at a 1. If we look at the character B, different combination, just 2 bits. And character C, okay, now this time you'll see there are 3 ones within the character and the parity bit is on.
Yes.
A total of 4 bits, again an even number, and that's called even parity. You set the parity bit to make up an even number of ones in the 8 bits that you're going to send.
You say you set, but in fact you don't really have to set it, do you?
Well,
if it's now accepted that everyone sets it even.
Well, everybody uses even parity apart from the bulletin boards, and since anyway, if you get an error, there's not much you can do about it. Most systems, like this one, for example, say parity checking off.
Yeah.
In other words, well, forget it. And that covers every possibility.
So
Let's just ignore
I think
the
the
problem.
message I'm getting from you is that the software writers have actually given us too many options, and all we really need to think about is the baud rate at this stage.
Yes, luckily things are shaking down and we've got so few options. We can simplify things a lot and just turn up some really simple software, which is very easy to use.
If the day ever comes we end up with something as simple as Vicom and cheap enough for everyone to afford, then communications, I think, will really take off.
That's the way.
Thanks very much, John. Thanks very much indeed. Well, I must say, I've got even more admiration for those of you now who are in touch with our bulletin board, having seen what it takes. And thanks as well, a big thanks to all of those who dialed in last week to the MicroLive bulletin board and pledged money to the Children in Need appeal. To all of those who managed to get through during the programme, we will be sending you a MicroLive T-shirt.
Apricot are to stop production of their F1 machine following the announcement this week of a £4.6 million loss over the last 6 months. The F1 was introduced in June 1984 as the cheapest machine in the Apricot range, priced at £895. The company is now to concentrate on selling more expensive machines like the Zen. Users have complained that the F1 was sold with defective software and have formed a society to combat what they see as Apricot's cavalier treatment of their complaints. On hearing that the F1 was to be discontinued, a spokesman for the user group said, "I'm not at all surprised." High street store Dixon's is taking a massive gamble this Christmas by trying to sell off most of the unsold stocks of home computers left after last year's slump. They've bought all 75,000 of the remaining Atari 800 XLs, which are no longer in production, all of the remaining Commodore C16s, which will only continue in production if Dixon's can sell them, and all stocks of Acorn's Electron, over which Acorn say there is a question of how long we will continue manufacture. They also bought up £10 million worth of Sinclair stock in the summer when Sinclair got into financial difficulties. Lucasfilms, makers of the film Star Wars, have lost their fight to stop supporters of President Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative using the term Star Wars to describe the policy. Star Wars has been used by journalists as a convenient bit of shorthand to indicate the president's research program into space weapons. Lucasfilms say they don't mind newspapers using it, but they do object when it's used to solicit money. They claim the words Star Wars are theirs. The company say, after all, you can't find Star Wars in the Oxford English Dictionary.